Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. Today I'm here with a review of On the Hook by Francisco Stork. This is a book that I did receive free from Scholastics, so thank you for them for providing a review copy. This is the finished physical copy of the book, but I was not paid for the review and I am under no obligation to even talk about the book. I posted about this story recently on Instagram, and I wanted to give more of my full thoughts on a YouTube video because this was a really interesting book. For me, it's a book that really made me kind of think about a particular thing. So first, a quick synopsis of the story. And in this story we follow Hector, who is a teenage boy in high school who lives in the projects. His family has recently had to move to the projects because his father died and now they can't afford the house in which he basically grew up. He has wonderful friends at school though, one in particular, a girl, and she is just clearly like the person that grounds him and pushes him to want to achieve more. Hector is also a fabulous chess player. He's very good, but he's also very shy and self-conscious about it. So the drama in the story really begins when Hector begins to get accosted by the local drug dealer, the drug dealer's brother, who ends up hurting him. And then there's a big confrontation and then dealing with the results of this big confrontation. What really struck me about this book is there's so much of like toxic masculinity in here. Hector has really internalized a very like street idea of what it means to be a man and what it means to having to show courage. He believes that he is a coward because he cannot stand up to the drug dealer's brother, and he doesn't know how to protect his family and himself. And that was really difficult for me to read, and it really made me think though, because in the situation that Hector is in, that Stork describes in this book, it really is like it's a reality for a lot of boys growing up in particular areas where they might not fit a particular definition of masculinity, a very toxic definition of masculinity, but that does not erase the fact that their friends, their family, like the people that they are around, don't acknowledge a different definition of masculinity, and they expect this particular kind of behavior. And in here, Stork does not endorse that behavior. He does challenge it, but at the same time, Hector is not able to escape that particular definition of masculinity. And so it really made me think a lot about like the area where I grew up with, which was not like the worst area in the world, but it was like the bad area of town, and how difficult it was for some people to stay away from just some common like community ideas. It was not super hard for me particularly, but I do think that one, it's different for girls and for female presenting individuals, and because there are different expectations and different boxes that you can fit into, and I really fit into more of like the schoolgirl box. And also all of my friends were not involved in some of these other things. They were much more focused on family and school, and at least while we were together, so there wasn't a pressure, the same kind of pressure the same kind of pressure at least to fit into particular boxes. And so it really made me think about some of the other experiences of especially like the men and the boys in my extended family and in the community that I grew up with. In the story, Hector really has to really deal with that and deal with the consequences of this big confrontation, what he wants to do with his life, and revenge. Revenge is a huge theme in the second half of the story, and how all-consuming revenge can be, and the consequences of not dealing with grief. Grief is a central part throughout the entire book. By the time we enter Hector's story, he has lost his father. He is grieving. His brother is grieving. His whole family is grieving, and everybody is handling it in a very different way, and we get to see that. We also get to experience like an on-the-page violence and death, and then the aftermaths of that as well. So content warnings for that as well. I think this is a book that deals with very heavy themes, but as I was reading it, I also kept thinking that this is a book that a lot of students, a lot of young kids will connect with. Especially in that age group and even younger. I think this would be a great book for like middle school and younger high school kids. There is this idea of toxic masculinity and this idea of how can you escape all of this, especially when there is not all of it is within your control. There are things that are within your control, but a lot of things that are not, that depend on other people's actions and other people's choices, and I really enjoyed that here. A couple of other content warnings. I already says there's violence, there's on and off the page death of a family member, and there's discussions of alcoholism. That is not a central theme of the story because it's not something that Hector himself is dealing with, but it's something that somebody very close to him is dealing with. So I wanted to make sure and point that out. There were elements of the story that made me feel really uncomfortable, and at first I wasn't sure like how to deal with that. I don't mind when a book makes me feel uncomfortable. In fact, I actually welcome it because it's the authors challenged me in some way, and this one really did challenge me, especially within that theme of toxic masculinity. So I wanted to make sure and talk about this book because I think it will appeal especially to a young adult audience. But if anybody out there has read this book or wants to talk a little bit more down in the comments, let me know. We can talk spoilers. Just make sure we put spoilers in there so that anybody that doesn't want to deal with any spoilers can avoid them. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.